Morning guys, welcome back to the Rod Shop. Today we're going to be talking about how to manage multiple rod builds at the same time, so y'all stick around. Well, I get a lot of questions about building multiple rods at the same time and how to do it without a lot of extra gear and keep everything moving. How I manage it is I have them in different phases. They're almost like assembly line construction, but it's assembly line in the same spot. Now I have multiple dryers. I have the 3-tier CRB dryers. I have a couple single dryers. My Alps power wrapper is a dryer. I have the dirty power wrapper out in the other part of the shop that when I get really busy, I'll pull it in here, but I normally don't have more than 3 or 4 rods on a dryer at the same time. So how I manage that without having to change my rod shop around that often is I build them in stages. Now, here are the 6 rods I'm working on at the moment. So this one you recognize is the Voodoo rod. It's ready for the final guide wrapping and then some labels and such. This was the Chevron rod that waiting on a reel seat part 4. That's going to be an ATC Razor reel seat, and I'm out of those at the moment. This is a casting rod, even though it's got a spinning grip on it, because this client has very small hands and doesn't like the way the triggers fit. So this is a spinning seat built as a casting rod. It's very bright right now. Now we're toning that down with some marbling but we wanted a bright under layer to make the marbling show up. That needs to be epoxied next. In fact, I'm going to start working on that here in a little bit. This is a flipping stick that I can't make up my mind what I'm going to do. This is not a client rod. This is really not my rod. I have rods in some local retailers around here, and I try to build some pretty interesting, one-of-a-kind, unique rods to put out in public. I have some agreements with several of the local retailers. That's where that rod's going. This one's also going out there. Same place. This one is ready for the tip top and epoxy on the guide wraps. And then this one will be started later on today. This is a brand new jerkbait rod. So I manage them in different steps. This one needs grips and reel seat next. I'm out of the carbon fiber grips that I want to use on this one. But everything else is just in its final stages, and I just rotate in my dryers here. But I try to keep them staggered so that I'm working on 3 or 4 rods at one time, but I'm in different phases, and I utilize 2 or 3 dryers, and I try to time stuff so it can dry and turn overnight here in the climate controlled rod shop, and then in the morning I go on to the next step. I know that might not sound like rocket science, and it's really not. It's just if you only have one dryer or you're hand wrapping with one dryer, just stagger your build processes. Get your first rod up ready for drying and get epoxy on it, and then you pick up your next rod and you work on your grips, reaming everything, not in the same room obviously, because you don't want the dust and wet epoxy, but start your next rod with, getting the grips reamed and getting everything laid out and glued up. And then by the time you get all that done, you can start your third rod with design and reaming. And so you have a rod ready for glue. You have a rod that's glued, ready for epoxy. You have an epoxy rod that's ready for labels, and then the final coat of epoxy, and just rotate them in and out. Now, next month, I have 5 identical rods I'm going to build at the same time for a Make-A-Wish charity fundraiser that I do every year. That is a little different process, and I'll show you that next month. But this is how I manage multiple rod builds at the same time without having, a huge assembly facility. This is a 12 by 12 room that's not just a rod shop. There's a lot of other things in here, but this is where I primarily build from. And you can manage 2 or 3 rods going at the same time at different steps from a kitchen table if you're creative. So I hope that answers the questions that I got in some of the comments from the previous videos. If you still have questions on how I manage, shoot me an email. I'll try to be more specific for your situation, but thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you next time.